Now we'll study about the contents of the posterior triangle of the neck. In this figure, skin and platysma has been removed and you can see all the contents of the triangle. First we will study about the nerves. So the most important nerve which we will find in the posterior triangle is spinal part of accessory nerve. This is a spinal part of accessory nerve and it is just beneath the investing layer of deep cervical fossa. You can say it is plastered in the underneath the deep cervical fossa. This is the only cranial nerve you can get in the posterior triangle, and this is a purely motor nerve. This is purely motor nerve. It supplies the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. It runs on the levator scapulae and it present beneath the investing layer of deep cervical fossa. We can also see two nerves arise from the C3 spinal segment and C4 spinal segment. These are the sensory nerves which supply the trapezius. We can also see here the cutaneous nerves which I have discussed earlier. These four nerves. First one is transverse cervical nerve, second one is greater auricular nerve and lesser occipital nerve and supraclavicular nerve. These nerves are the branches of the cervical plexus. First they press the prevertebral fossa, then they press the investing layer of deep cervical fossa and become subcutaneous. Another nerves we can see in the lower part of the triangles are brachial plexus, roots and trunks of the brachial plexus. So you can find here the roots and trunks of the brachial plexus. You can also see one artery here, this artery. This is the occipital artery. We can find in the apex of the triangle. Occipital artery is the branch of the external carotid artery. We can also see two arteries here. The upper one is transverse cervical artery and the lower one is suprascapular artery. Suprascapular artery lies behind the clavicle and transverse cervical artery just lie above the clavicle. These two arteries crossing the brachial plexus transversely. These two arteries are the branches of thyrocervical trunk, which is the branch of first part of subclavian artery. These all structures are crossed by the inferior valley of homohyoid muscle. Brachial plexus, the roots and the trunks are present between the scalenus medius and scalenus anterior muscles. Here you cannot see scalenus anterior muscle because it is covered by the sternocleidomastoid muscle. This is a scalenus medius muscle. And one nerve you can see here, this nerve. This is suprascapular nerve which runs along with the suprascapular artery. Here what you are seeing is brachial plexus. Brachial plexus is formed by the ventral ramus of C5 to T1 spinal nerve. C5, C6 form the upper trunk, C7 continue as the middle trunk, and C8, T1 meet with each other and form the lower trunk. Then trunks are divided into anterior and posterior division. These divisions of the brachial plexus taking place just behind the clavicle. In the posterior triangle of neck, we can get the roots and the trunks and their branches. So in the posterior triangle, we have to search for the long thoracic nerve, which root value is C5, C6, C7, which runs behind the root of the plexus. Then we have to search for the dorsal scapular nerve, which arises from the C5 root, and after arising it presses the scalenus medius muscle and it runs just beneath the levator scapulae muscle. Suprascapular nerve runs along with the lateral cord and it vanishes under the trapezius muscle. we should also search for the nerve of the subclavius. So in the posterior triangle of the neck, we have to search for the roots, trunks, long thoracic nerve, dorsal scapular nerve, suprascapular nerve, and the nerve to subclavius. This picture I have taken from the Cunningham, and this is a very good picture. You can see this is the accessory spinal part of accessory nerve, and this is levator-scapulae muscle. You can also see the cutaneous nerve, transverse cutaneous nerve, transverse cervical nerve. This is great auricle nerve. This is lesser occipital nerve. This is anterior branches. This is posterior branches. Anterior branches supply the skin over the parotid gland. This is retromandibular vein. This posterior branch is coming out through the parotid gland. This is posterior auricular vein. And we can also see here two veins. These veins are, the upper one is transverse cervical vein and the lower one is suprascapular vein. These veins run along with their named arteries. Transverse cervical artery, it runs along with transverse cervical artery, it runs along with suprascapular artery. These veins are beneath the investing layer of deep cervical fossa. They join the external jugular vein when external jugular vein pressing the deep cervical fossa to drain into the subclavian vein. Here you can also see the trunks of the brachial plexus visualized between the scalenus medius and scalenus anterior muscle, and this whole part, this trunk, is covered by the prevertebral fossa, which in the latter forms the axillary sheath. And you can see the suprascapular nerve. This is the medial branch, intermediate branch, and lateral branch. The medial branch runs over the sternocleidomastoid muscle.